What's up, everyone, and welcome to Shared Save the Game Media's weekly gaming discussion podcast. I am your host, Kevin, and on today's episode, we're talking about PlayStation announcing a whole bunch of stuff. Wolverine, PS5, Ghost of Yotei, and more. We also have some unfortunate layoff news impacting SuperMassive, Saber, a whole bunch of other things, and some Netflix studios, too. We're going to talk about all that and more. Before we get to that, I got to introduce my co-host, melting over in the UK, Sam Heaney. How are you, my friend?
Well, I mean, as you just said, melting. I am indeed. The UK. Here's a question for you. You're more versed in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many heat waves do you have to have in the span of, like, I don't know, 4 weeks now? How many heat waves do you have to have before they stop calling them unprecedented, you know?
Well, are they getting more? Are they getting hotter every time? Because
I think that would make sense, but it's not really. It's like maybe like there's one day where it peaks, but in terms of like the heat wave in general, I feel like there's some nomenclature, some sort of verbiage being used here that isn't quite right. And I'm not saying that it's irking me, but it is irking me. But besides the heat, man, I'm doing pretty well. I'm very busy. Got lots of things, a lot of plates spinning. Mostly stuff I can't speak about, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm in good spirits. I'm feeling energized. I'm looking forward. This sometimes you get these shows that we do where we have like a topic and it's a bit more sort of, not necessarily like rigid in its form.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have things like what I think today is going to be, where it becomes more just sort of open conversational. And I think that is refreshing from time to time. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a massive news week, right? Especially in terms of some of the news we've had in recent weeks, especially with the Xbox. But PlayStation has dropped some nuggets. It's more like games related, I feel like. Obviously, we have some layoff news that I threw in there that I wanted to just chat about, get the lay of the land. But yeah, it's going to be a fun episode. I'm looking forward to the What You've Been Playing section.
How are you?
I've had another stressful week. Work just won't let up. It's we're kind, I don't want to say we're in a time crunch. We have like a deadline, right? Like this is when we want this done. But if it doesn't get done by that, it's not the end of the world. It's just a little annoying because like I'm the only one working on the project, and I feel like, oh, it's all on me. And then I'm also at the mercy of, well, I have to run data analysis, and I don't control how fast the programs go. Also, my laptop is a piece of garbage. We need more RAM, all right? And I understand. They're not going to buy us more RAM.
Have you heard of a little thing going on right now?
Yeah. I almost thought about bringing that up, being like, can I get, like, 32 more gigs? And I was like, that's gonna cost them $800, and they aren't gonna do that. So we'll make do, but it does limit the progress I can make. I'm still facing issues with my student loans that I went over in my Patreon exclusive episode that you can listen to now, the monthly Q&A. If you're a patron, $1 a month, you can write in each and every month. Write me questions. I'll answer them about anything and everything. Soaking It in the chat says, I added Lunar Grandia and Shining Force to the list. Thanks, Kevin. Yes, I went over some games, retro games that I want to get to at some point in the future on that episode. Those were a few of the suggestions. But I also covered my whole student loan situation, and it's not getting better, all right? They got 2 weeks exactly before my next payment to solve this. Otherwise, I'm getting on the phone, and you're going to see Angry Kevin come out, all right?
I'm excited. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna live stream me yelling at the federal government. Everyone, stay tuned for that. But no, I'm excited to talk about some games. So why don't we jump into it? Shout out to Soaking It and Nissa Hauer hanging out with us as always in the chat. So this is Shared Save. We are live every Thursday right here on youtube.com/SaveTheGameMedia. If you can't catch us live, we post every Sunday on your favorite audio platform of choice. While we are there, please drop us a 5-star review. If you do it on Spotify, you can be entered to win any game you want. Yes, if we hit 100 reviews, I think we're about 25 away, all right? 20-ish, 25-ish more reviews. If I draw your name, you send me, hey, I reviewed, I left a rating. I will give you any game you want if your name is chosen. Nissa says Sam is echoey. That's probably my fault. I'll fix it. It's
Fix it.
yeah, I'll fix it. All right. So if you want to support us even further, get early audio access to this podcast and exclusive shows like I just talked about, head over to patreon.com/SaveTheGameMedia. Choose the tier that's right for you, like our current supporters. So thank you to Sam Hall, Alpaca Tom, Rick Davis, Silkenit, Dave Harp, David Hotright, Lillian, Marcus O'Neill, Nikolai Knight, Fabulous Brianna, Black Wyver, David Burdett, Dinglebaum, and Savoy Prime. Thank you all for your support. We appreciate each and every one of you. All right. Sam, why don't we jump into what have you been playing?
Unfortunately, a brief one from me this week. I mean, I know I listed a few things in the document, but really not much to report, honestly, or should I say, not much that I can report. Working on some stuff in the background. Would love to discuss that with you, and will at some point in the future. Non-determinate, indescriptive, all that stuff. But the things that I can speak of are just the usual things that are currently in the rotation. So I think from the last time that me and you spoke, I've done one additional session thus far of Big Walk with Sam Hall. Again, continue to really enjoy the game. I think that the further we get in, the puzzles are not necessarily becoming more complex, but I think becoming the puzzles are trusting you to have a comprehensive grasp of what mechanics you have at your disposal, which are limited, and thus they sort of inherently ask you and force you to come up with creative solutions, and that usually leads to some funny moments, as you would hope for in this kind of game. So still enjoying that. I have gone back to Blueprints. I can't remember if I said that last week or not.
No, you didn't. This is the first time I'm here now. Didn't you get the platinum?
No, Christ.
Oh, no, I thought you did.
No, I mean, I got close, which is why I've gone back. So I realized I'm one off, I believe. I am one off, and I know what I've got to do, but it's the RNG mixed with more RNG, and a lot of bad luck, which has prohibited me from getting it thus far. So I'm not going to be like grinding it, and I haven't been grinding it, but I've just been doing a day or two here and there over the past week, just to see if I can get lucky, and I haven't. I've gotten close a couple of times to doing what I need to do, but the pieces haven't fallen into place yet. But I will. I remain committed to doing it because the game is fantastic. And then the other last one is, again, Incident at Galley House. I think that my sentiment from last week remains the same. If it's an excellent puzzle game, continuing to play through it with my dad, which is what we usually do with our sort of puzzle deduction stuff, and having a blast with it. So anybody in the chat, puzzles games?
I'm sure Silkenit will be playing it because you and him share a wish list. But I saw an article about that game. It came up on my timeline. I forget who it was from. Maybe it was Pixelbyte, but it was someone that put on art. I'm like, wow, okay. So this game's hopefully getting a little traction. You're the only person I ever heard talk about it until I saw this random article pop up. But I thought it was very cool. I should have tagged you in it.
Yeah, I too have seen it gain a little bit of momentum. I don't know how well it's doing by any means, but I think it's certainly permeated the right sort of hemisphere of gaming conversation, which is great, because I think that when, an Obradin or a Golden Idol does that, I think that it just further increases the chances of, one, the game's doing well, but also I think the genre getting a little bit more love in general and attention, and that means that we get more games like it, and that is nothing but a good thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, I see Silkina say that he bought it day one, but has yet to play it.
Well, you'll love it when you do, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Well, I've been playing a lot of games this week. Unfortunately, I don't have positive things to say about all of them.
Oh.
So we'll start with the one that I talked about last week. I wrapped up Beast of Reincarnation. I did share my thoughts on social after rolling credits. My thoughts, I wouldn't say they're changed from last week. I do think the story gets better at the end of the game. The last few chapters, they actually were like, okay, now we're going to explain the whole game to you. We've been teasing you for 10 chapters. Here's the actual story. Here's where things get good. So I think the game ends really strongly. It has some emotional beats that I really liked. The combat, again, still fun, still fast, fluid. Like, I enjoyed playing the game. I will say, there's like a 20-minute long cutscene before the final boss. And if you lose to the final boss, you got to watch the whole thing again.
No.
I was like, bro, don't do this to me. I'm right here. I'm at the end. You can't make me watch this. I just want to skip it and get... Because if you lose to a boss, you should just immediately start in the fight again or like be able to skip it, right? Like that's a basic quality of life feature. Yeah, so I beat it. I've seen some wild takes about this game where some people are calling it, it's like a 3 out of 10. And I'm like, okay, let's live in reality, everyone. Like, it's a good game with some flaws.
Sure.
I think people are crapping on this game. And then I've seen some people are kind of fighting against that and maybe overrating it a little bit. It's a good game that had some issues. That's all I'll say on it. Like, let's move on. I'm not gonna stick. It's not gonna be in my top 10. You know, I enjoyed it, but I'm ready to move on from Beast of Reincarnation.
Do you think, I can't remember to what extent we discussed it, but would you say, now that you've rolled credits, that you're interested in Game Freak doing more games like this, whether it's a sequel or whether it's just something that isn't Pokemon? Do you think that they should continue to try?
Yeah, so they've done a few games over the years that aren't Pokemon. Actually, they have like a weird race, Pocket Jockey Derby or something. They have a few weird games out there that aren't Pokemon. They've never really blown up because obviously Pokemon is like the number one IP in the world. But yes, I would love to see if they did a follow-up to this game. I think there's a good foundation here.
That's good.
I'll be interested to see if you ever, if you get to it. If PS Plus, like I said, I think this is probably one that you might enjoy, especially after some updates, quality of life features have been added to it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said last week, I think that there's enough to sort of like the premise, the general gameplay loop, the combat from what I've seen, that it is something I would like to try eventually, whether it is a deep sale or PS Plus, but I will play it.
Yeah, combat's good. Combat's really good. Then I jumped, I was looking around. I almost was like, should I buy Marvel Tokon? But there was the whole, it's not really running great on PC, so I was worried I would buy it and have issues. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to wait for them to patch it. I'm going to get the best quality experience because I hear the single player content is actually pretty good. And I do want to go online, and I'm like, I really enjoyed the beta, but I was like, I can't really be dishing out $55, $60 for that right now, right? So I'm hold off. I went to my backlog, and shout out Todd Oxtra for these next two games that I'm going to talk about because he sent me codes. They were in his humble bundle. He didn't want them. Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion was a game I decided to try. Are you familiar with Daemon X Machina, Sam?
I mean, it's one of my goats, obviously.
All right, so the original was a Nintendo Switch exclusive. I don't know if it ever came, but it was at least a timed exclusive, and it was kind of like a Armored Core Gundam-esque game where you were in a giant mech. You could play online with like four-player co-op, and you would take down other robots and like a big robot, and you would have this like limited area, right? It wasn't super well received. It had very mixed reviews when it came out. I only played the demo. I thought it was like interesting, but not enough for me to buy the game, right?
Sure.
So I was like, okay, I'll try the sequel. This is their second attempt. I'm sure they've improved things. I didn't know that this game was completely different to the original. You are no longer in a giant mech. So what they've done is they've essentially turned this into Anthem, where you are now in a mech suit and you go to like a hub area and you accept missions in this open world. And then you get into your suit and you fly through the open world to your mission area, kill some enemies, then you go back to the mission area, rinse and repeat. I played this for like an hour and a half or so, and that's about all I could take because I was like, this is not a Kevin game. I was in for a giant mech Gundam battle in like an enclosed area, like linear mission based. I'm not looking to fly around. I didn't like Anthem. Why would I like Anthem Light, for Anthem from Temu, right? So it didn't control very well. That flying feels good, but the combat, terrible. So that's about all I could take of that game. I was very disappointed, and maybe it's on me because I didn't look into the game. I just assumed it was the same thing. But yeah, not for me.
Disappointing.
The next game I want to talk about is Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. Of course,
I saw some pretty positive takes on your social media, I must say.
Oh
so.
yeah, I'm getting some backlash to that.
I can imagine.
Takes. I want everyone to know it's a joke. All right, most of it is in jest. I like to poke a little fun. I don't care if you like SMT. I played for 3.5, 4-ish hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I could take of this game as well. I've uninstalled SMT5, so there's a lot of interesting things to say about this because clearly Shin Megami Tensei is the mainline series. Some people may not know this. It's the mainline series that Persona is the spin-off of. So this series came first. You have the same demons. You have a lot of the same mechanics, like fusing of the demons and talking to them to recruit them. And like, there's a whole list of things in this game that Persona fans will enjoy and recognize. The same weakness system, kind of the same combat, a little different combat system, but you see the similarities. So my problem with this game is that I didn't realize it was basically grinding the game. I knew it was difficult, but what you have to do is you get put in like, I don't want to say open world, kind of open zone ish map.
Sure. And
there's just enemies scattered all out. And each zone kind of has 3 or 4 demons that you'll fight. Like the first area, a lot of sludge monsters, a lot of your basic SMT demons, and then you get more. Oh, Kate Sis over here. There's flying enemies now over here. You basically have to fight everything in the zone to be the appropriate level to go fight the boss. And that requires hours of grinding at a time. And it gets so monotonous and boring because even the side quests are really just go fight this enemy over here. The world is not interesting, at least right now. It's just a barren desert wasteland where I'm like, okay, there's nothing really to see. Broken buildings, just demons laid out, and you fight the demons along your way to get to the boss. And then if you don't not high enough level, and I'm talking like you have to be a high level because I think I was level 16. I went into a boss fight with a level 18, 19. They were clapping me like hard. I just stood no chance. And I was like, I've been grinding for an hour. I'm not getting much experience. I don't feel like this game respects my time. And I've talked to some other people who have beat the game, and they say, yeah, you basically have to grind. Like, that's the gameplay loop. Beat a boss, go grind a bunch. Beat the boss, go grind a bunch. The story is secondary. The gameplay loop for SMT really is the battles and then building your demon party out, which I like the building of the demon party, infusing them and getting new demons, but not enough for me to put, no lie, 70-something hours is the how long to beat for this game.
Oof.
So I can't do it. I can't. Maybe a different point in life, but not me. Not me, everyone.
So, I mean, God, SMT and the spin-off series, they both suck. Oh, sucks, hates.
How
hates.
dare you? Persona is fantastic. All right? Except Persona 3. Persona 3 is not very good. All right.
Good for you.
Persona 4, masterpiece. Persona 5 Royal, masterpiece. Soul Hackers 2, it's okay. How many spinoffs they got, you know?
You had me in the first half.
Yeah. There's actually quite a few spinoffs of SMT. There's like Persona,
Excellent.
Soul Hackers. I think there's another Demon Summoner or Devil
Metroid.
Summoner. Nope.
Oh,
All right. Let's talk about a game that came out today and a game that I am actually enjoying a lot. Dusk Fade.
oh,
This game is awesome.
oh.
I have played about 2 hours, so I'm not super deep. Actually, I don't know how long the game is, so maybe I am getting deep, but I can't imagine it's a super long game. This is a 3D platformer in the vein of, I want to say, Jak and Daxter, Kingdom Hearts. Like, it clearly wears its Kingdom Hearts inspiration. Like, you basically have the Keyblade. But it's very Jak and Daxter-esque. So you have kind of a hub world, and then you're going to go to different gates and like go to different areas. And each of those areas has a bunch of different zones you'll pass through as you work your way to the boss. I'm in the first one now. We're trying to get to some volcanic lava mountains, and I've gone through crazy different biomes so far in there. Combat is really basic so far. It's just, hitting the X button, you got a dodge roll, and you can upgrade that to get some attacks out of the dodge roll. I just got a grappling hook, so that's opening up new exploration opportunities where they're doing the thing. I love this in 3D platforms where you're going through a level and you see collectibles off in the distance, right? And you're like, I can't get over there with the tool set I currently have. And now I'm like, clearly I have to get boots to be able to grind this rail, or I have to get a grappling hook because that looks like something I should be able to attach to, right? And now I'm getting those materials. So it's like, okay, they want me to go back, or I will go back at some point to this area and be able to get all these things. I like that. This is very collectathon heavy. It's wears its inspirations on its sleeve. It's absolutely gorgeous. The art style is stunning. It runs super well on PC. The music is beautiful. I'm sitting here just like jamming out to the soundtrack. I don't. Sometimes if a soundtrack isn't very good, like maybe I'll put on a podcast while I play a game. But this one, I'm like, nah. I want to hear everything. Voice acting's not great, but it's a 3D platformer, so the music really makes up for it. I'm absolutely loving Dusk Fade. I can't wait to play more of it.
That is good to hear. I just added it to my wish list.
Yes, it's I know on PC it's on sale for a launch discount of 20%. I think Fanatical had it for 25%, so I got it even cheaper on PC. I think PlayStation you had to pre-order to get that discount, and they can't do a launch discount for some reason. But it's $30 normally, and from what I can tell so far, well worth it.
Nice, and I don't mean this in a demeaning sense. It sort of has, on literally like first blush glance, the appearance of it being maybe one of those, slightly jankier, low budget kind of platformers, which you play a lot of, and there's nothing wrong with most of them, right? But it does seem then when I'm watching the actual gameplay that it looks very smooth. A lot of production value. So I think that it is, and it's obviously reviewing very well too.
Yeah, it is.
So I think that it has a chance to sort of break out of that mold and maybe do pretty well for itself.
Yeah, I really hope people pay attention to this one because of the price tag, because of the inspirations. I think it's hearkening back to those PS2 platformers, clearly. I would almost say, and they're not exactly the same, but it gives me Kena Bridge of Spirits vibes. Like when I played Kena, I was like, this game could have existed, clearly not the visual fidelity, but this game could have existed on the PlayStation 2, that generation of games. This feels like that, and in the best way.
Nice.
So if you're interested, please go check out Dusk Fade. It's a small indie team from Spain, I believe, that made the game. So yeah, I'm excited to play more. I'll talk about that more next week. Maybe I'll beat it by then. I don't know how long it is. That's all I've been playing, Sam. So, why don't we jump into the news for the week? We're going to start with you, if you don't mind, if you want to kick off your topic, because it's an interesting one you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I mean, like again, like I said at the top of the show, it's sort of less a specific topic necessarily and more just like a general conversation. Because I pitched to you as we sort of spitball ideas back and forth of what we want to talk about each week. I said just generally like the comms strategy that we're seeing from PlayStation is interesting, I guess, is the best way I can phrase it. So, you mentioned obviously we've had the previews for Wolverine just go live from a lot of outlets playing the game for a couple of hours. We got a random social media post the other day announcing the Yotei DLC and complete edition. And, couple that with the fact of like they have this upcoming Phantom Blade State of Play that is separate from the 11-minute Phantom Blade trailer. Does this Phantom Blade State of Play omit the potential of the usual September State of Play or not? I don't know. It's very scattershot, it seems to me. And it's hard to tell from sort of like a peon's perspective down here, in the crowd, whether it's effective or not. And I think that especially wrapping in the context of what's happening in terms of like the boycotting and the bandwagoning after the physical announcement from PlayStation, whether the approach that they're taking now seemingly is a response to this, or was a intentional move ahead of time so that their comparative quietness compared to how they used to be years prior isn't seen as so strange when they do go quiet after making a controversial decision. So, I mean, I don't really know where to begin necessarily. I think, first and foremost, just out of curiosity, I suppose, have you read any of the Wolverine previews? Have you looked into them at all? Are you staying dark? What's the...
Yeah, so I've seen a few things just coming across socials, some shorts and whatnot, but I'm not searching it out. I'm not intentionally going to podcast or review or preview written previews, I should say, for Wolverine because I'm already sold on the game. I think they've already showed too much for me personally.
Sure.
Like I'm really in this state for movies, TV shows, video games where one, maybe two trailers, and then I don't want to see any more. They're just showing way too much. I feel like they're spoiling things. I saw some things come across my feed about, oh, this person has been cast in this as this character in Wolverine. I'm like, would have been cool not to know that. Would have been awesome if you didn't state that. Why do we need to know everything about the game? I saw Insomniac come out and be like, you only play as Wolverine, everyone. Don't worry. I'm like, okay, like, cool. That doesn't, that maybe only means something if you saw the leaks from years ago,
Sure.
right? But it is coming across to me like we're saying too much. We're really trying to show everyone. And I don't know why, because Insomniac is a proven studio with a great track record. And I've seen nothing from Wolverine that makes me feel like it's going to be anything less than a really good game.
Yeah. And, I obviously have sort of given up on the idea of going in blind to this game because of how deep I went into the leaks. And, with some minor changes, how one-to-one they still seem to be, which is to be expected. They're not going to deviate massively, even if it was leaked. So I'm sort of, it's a foregone conclusion that I know a lot of the stuff about the game, and that's fine by me. I don't care. So I did read the previews, and I would assert, without giving anything away, that I think that your takeaway is correct, that it is looking to just be a really good game at base level. And I think that you are absolutely right based on what we've been shown in new gameplay and written articles explaining context of things. And like, if you are sold on the game in any capacity, you don't want to be reading or watching this stuff, because it's not like catastrophically big spoiler stuff, but it is things that will just detract from your experience, particularly because it is a linear game, right? So, you're not going to be doing a lot of stuff other than the story.
So it's, you know what their strategy, if we're talking about PlayStation overall marketing strategy right now, where they seem to just be dropping things on socials.
Yeah.
They're taking a page out of Nintendo's book, like full stop. Nintendo, since the Switch 2 launched, has really jumped into this, we're going to drop big news on the Nintendo Today app. Like, that's how we found out Splatoon Raiders release date. And we get the most random updates. The NSO Super Mario Sunshine's coming. They just randomly drop things on social media all the time now. The marketing for Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave reminds me a lot of kind of what they're doing with Wolverine, where they're showing way too much. They're basically every day for the last, I don't know, month have been like, here's a new character deep dive into this character from Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. And I'm like, I don't want to know. I want to discover the character in conversation during the game. Like, I don't even want to see them. Stop posting. Stop telling me details about them. And then they did that direct where I know I didn't have to watch the direct. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna tune in, because we have really only seen that one trailer. So I was like, okay, let's see if they're really keeping the three houses. And it was great until the last 5 minutes where they're like, here's the real protagonist of Fortune's Weave. I'm like, why are you showing me this? Like, I understand that's probably the beginning of the game, but it almost felt like they just spoiled something that they didn't need to spoil. I don't know why developers and marketing teams feel like they need to tell you every detail about the game these days. That's really how it's coming across. And PlayStation has adopted that marketing for Wolverine. They did a lot for Marvel Tokon as well, where it was like every day a new character guide, a new character drop. Here's every combo, here's every skin. And I'm like, I would have loved to just see the skins when I unlock them in the game. Instead, you're posting every single thing. There's a compilation video of every reference where Deadpool's moveset's from. I'm like, guys, we're doing too much. Like, let people have some excitement, some joy from discovering it while playing it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, we can acknowledge that marketing is literally self-described. It's marketing, it's to advertise. But I think that there is a sort of over prioritization. We're seeing a lot of every new trailer or news beat around a game or a film or whatever is being explicitly and almost solely treated as trying to convince somebody who isn't yet on board. And thus they then feel incentivized even to show something that they haven't yet shown. And I get that from like a conceptual level, but I think that companies aren't striking the right balance necessarily, because this preview footage, what I would have been more okay with is, like, for example, the gameplay that we got at the State of Play,
which was like 10 minutes.
Sure. If that sequence and things sort of like around that sequence, maybe either side of that sequence, was this gameplay thing that Outlet's got to play, and it was more about, the feel of the game, and it was cool to see it in action and blah, blah, blah. Get a little bit more narrative context, but not just hopscotch around the game, as this one did and many previews do. I think that I would have been more okay with that, because the majority of the experience is still protected, right? So you're still getting a new beat to market the game. You're still letting people get hands-on and play it, but you're not, because now we know what that gameplay section is like, and if you now read the previews and watch the videos, we know what multiple other gameplay sections are like. And in a linear game, again, that is probably pinging around 10 to 12 hours, probably.
Are we still feeling? Are we still feeling that after the pre? Because I haven't read the previews.
I mean,
Is it looking like a 12-ish hour game?
none of them say that they got a game length answer. I don't even know if many asked. But you would have to assume, like, if we were looking at what it took to complete Spider-Man 2, which was open world, that was like 20-25 hours. So if you're removing the open world element, it's fully linear, sort of mission based in essence. I would wager you're probably trimming that by 10 hours. You know, you're not exploring and free roaming, and there's still collectibles in the game. They've said that, which is to be expected. But if you are in linear levels, then, you know, you're not deviating for 5-10 minutes at a time to find them. So I think that I think the ceiling is probably 15 hours. I would love it if it hit that 15 hours, but I would say it's probably more in the 12 region if I had to take a stab without knowing anything.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning. So if we want to stay on Wolverine, obviously they announced the PlayStation 5 limited edition console and controllers. Does that get you more hyped for the game? Like, are you more excited? Are you interested in buying any of the Wolverine stuff? Because I'll say that yellow and black controller, I think, looks freaking awesome. Not as good as the red and black Gears of War controller that was just announced, all right?
Sure.
But two great controllers announced in 1 week for each from Xbox and PlayStation. I don't buy controllers, but if I did, that yellow one would be at the top of my list.
Yeah, I'm considering it, really. I have a couple of the special edition controllers. I have Spider-Man 2's, and I have still boxed the 30th anniversary one. I don't know about the controllers, even though I frankly like both of them. Obviously, I think the yellow one is best, but I like both. I will say I'm tempted by the covers, because I did have the sort of fully black covers for my base PS5. Obviously, I've sold that since, and now I'm just back to a bog standard white PS5 Pro. So I would like to swap them out for something else, and I think that, you know, instead of just going for another just all black, which I still love, I think I might go for. I think I might try and go for the PS5 Pro limited gray versions.
Gray.
Yeah, because I think that for the console itself, I would probably prefer to go for as non-garish a color as possible.
It would probably, the yellow might stand out in your room just looking at the color scheme. I will say that.
And just generally, I think that whilst I still think that the yellow covers look great, I think that the gray sort of metallic sheen of that color scheme that's you can only get for the Pro is quite nice. I mean, let's be honest, the main reason I'd be getting it is I think the whole Slash thing, like I've been on my soapbox about it, right?
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
About the slits in the PS5 Pro being a missed opportunity. But that being said, what they have done is very cool. And outside of the normal sort of remit for what PlayStation does with their stuff, they haven't done that kind of thing for multiple generations at this point. I think the closest you could get approximately is the special edition PS4 for Death Stranding 1, which was the sort of yellow translucent one. But yeah, I will probably go for those covers. I wouldn't say in general that stuff gets me more excited for the game, really, because I get the sentiment of it sort of like being an all-encompassing thing, builds more hype. You know, you've got the game coming, you've got the covers coming. It makes it more of an event, I suppose, personally. But I sort of still segment that stuff in my head. You know, I can be pumped about getting the covers and pumped about getting the game, but they don't really, as stupid as it sounds, they don't synergize, even though they're for the same thing and revolve around the same thing. So, but I know that some people do, and that's why they will buy every variant that they can of these things, because it is fundamental to their enjoyment of the overall ecosystem experience, which is whatever floats your boat.
I couldn't get them even if I wanted to because they don't make them for the base PS5.
They do not, which
You
is
have to have a slimmer
absurd.
Pro, which I think is ridiculous because
Yeah.
I imagine the majority, actually, maybe it's not because did they discontinue the base and it's just the slim? So maybe the majority
Yes, they
isn't.
replaced.
Yeah, so maybe the majority is the slim PS5 by now.
I mean, even then, like the problem that you, even with that argument, you're still dissing the hardcore
Yeah. The
that
people
were there from day one,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Obviously, the hardcore might have done what I've done and upgraded
Upgrade.
to a pro or something. But for those that haven't, that were there day one and still are rocking their base PS5s, like you're still slighting them, and that rubs me the wrong way. So bugger all I can do about it, but that is weird that you wouldn't do just the yellow covers. It's not that hard to keep the covers going, even if you've discontinued the console. You know that there are millions of those out in the wild. So it'd be worth the investment money-wise, but Sony don't know what they're talking about most of the time nowadays, it seems. But yeah, I mean, they also, as we said, announced the Yotei Complete Edition. I was very surprised by this, not only because of how out of the blue it was, but also because I just wasn't expecting Yotei to get this sort of thing. Frankly, if I'm being fully honest, I was kind of hoping that we weren't going to get this kind of thing for Yotei. I will be there. I've already pre-ordered the DLC upgrade thing, so I'll be there. I'll play it, and I will love it, no doubt. I loved Yotei, but I was, not on my usual infamous spiel.
Let's just call it what it is. All right, Yotei came and went. All right, it didn't.
Sure.
It's nowhere. I'm sure. We know it sold. It sold well enough, despite what some people on the internet will tell you. But it wasn't. It's not the Tsushima level hit that they expected, that I think people wanted, right? Like, by all accounts, it's a really good game. Didn't connect with people as much. I did feel like they were just kind of, after Legends, washing their hands of it and moving on. So when they announced how it get an expansion and a definitive edition, it took me by surprise. I was like, okay, I didn't know you were still working on that. I figured we were moving on to the next project. I do hope this is the last Ghost we see for quite some time, if they put the franchise on ice or whatever. But like, I want something new from the team.
Yeah, and I think as well, like the thing that boosted that sentiment is the fact that they ended support for Yotei Legends so fast. Compared to what Tsushima Legends had.
Did anyone play it? I know not a single human being that touched it.
I think it did connect with the audience that it was intending to connect with, and that was primarily just hardcore players of Tsushima Legends, and that's cool. Again, they didn't frame this as a live service. It wasn't, meant to be perpetually updated and stuff. So that's fine. I think it did end sooner in terms of its support than I was anticipating, because it was only a few months. But they put out, the raid as they did with the first iteration, and rounded everything out there, and you can unlock everything for free, and that's great. But yeah, I was hoping that Sucker Punch, with that sort of tying the bow early, was moving on to the next thing. Obviously, they almost certainly are working on whatever the next thing is, but they just sort of have this as the tailwind that is still eating up some time, some resources. I look forward to playing it. I mean, I know I made the joke to you about, they have another roguelike mode. I will say, for what it's worth, putting okay, I think God of War Valhalla is in a different conversation because, yes, that is a roguelike mode, but it is intrinsically tied narratively. It has very heavy narrative content. Like I said this to Taylor and Bree back in the day. I was like, if you want to know what's going on with God of War lore going forwards, I kind of think that Valhalla is like compulsory to play, or at least watch the cutscenes of. It's not a side thing. Whereas like the whatever they I can't remember what it's called, whatever they put into The Last of Us Part 2, that Gubbins, which was fun. It was a fun mode. Like that is very superficial. I think this one is probably going to find the middle ground there, where it's not seemingly super narrative focused, but I think that it feeds in very well to a mechanic that was already heavily implemented in Yotei, which is the bounties, right? So being able to pick your enemies that you're going out to track down, and you take them out, and if you are successful, you earn perks and rewards, and you keep going like that. I think that, and you know, the sort of overarching meta narrative is that you're building the legend of the Onryo as Atsu, and like, take it or leave it. I get that, but I'm kind of into that as a reason for me to boot up Yotei again after I finish whatever the DLC story is. So yeah, they've dropped that out of nowhere. But then I think, Kev, that is where the state of play talk comes in, because you know they do the Wolverine previews that drops today. That's fine. That's not part of any, you know, event. You wouldn't have that sync with anything normally. That's fine. But then you have like the covers and the controllers. You have this DLC announcement, and you know you get the dedicated state of play for Phantom Blade coming up. What's your take? Because I really don't know where I land on this, really. What's your take on... So, I mean, obviously we're talking about them copying Nintendo and whatnot, but still, do you perceive this in any way as them clearing space, assuming that there is a September state of play as they usually would be? Is this them clearing the deck so that this doesn't clog up a state of play so they can have announcements of other things? Or is it not related at all?
I still think we get a state of play before the year's over, for sure.
Yeah.
Whether it's September remains to be seen. I think it's interesting, Phantom Blade Zero getting an 11-minute deep dive trailer and then a state of play, where I kind of assumed we knew they announced it at the last state of play. Oh, hey, there'll be a deep dive. I assumed that 11-minute trailer was that deep dive. So to see that we're getting another 20 minutes, this is also a game where I'm already been sold. I watched a little bit of the 11 minutes and I was like, yeah, okay, you're showing me cool. We have a major actor associated with this, a Kung Fu legend, right? You're not showing me anything that's dissuading me. You're showing me how cinematic and beautiful the game is. Like, great, this is what I want. I'm excited for the game. I don't need 20 more minutes. I've already seen this trailer. I've already seen this game for 3 years at this point, right? Yep. in some varying aspects. So this is another one where I feel like it's getting over-marketed, and I was really surprised to see that PlayStation isn't publishing this game. For some reason, I just assumed they were, but it's being self-published, and I found that out because there's no physical copy as of yet of Phantom Blade Zero, and people are like, oh, Sony's doing... I'm like, guys, it's self-published. This has nothing to do with PlayStation, right? Yeah. But they're giving it its own state of play. It's a Chinese project. They want to get into that market more, so they're highlighting this. It screams to me a marketing play for that audience more than anything, because it is 10 p.m. Eastern time over here, and I don't think we've ever had a state of play that late. Like, I'm gonna be asleep. I'm sorry. There's no chance I'm staying up that late. What's that, 3 a.m. in the UK or something? Yeah. So they're not marketing this for us. They have made
Your
that
point?
very clear. This is for Eastern audiences. They want you to know they're behind this game, supporting it. Please come buy a PlayStation. Please come buy this game so it can be the next Black Myth Wukong, right?
That is an angle that I hadn't quite considered. Because we did have that. I wonder whether they're going to do it again. But we did have that one dedicated Japan state of play, right? So I wonder if, obviously, this isn't framed as that because it's specifically around one game, which I'm sure a lot of people will still watch, maybe not live as it broadcasts, but after the fact.
Are you
Yeah.
in on Phantom Blade from what you see? Because they dropped the price tag. It's not a full price title. I mean, it's a $60 title and probably cheaper on PC where I'll most likely be playing it. But I want to know. I don't know if I've ever asked you your feelings on it. I know we've seen the trailers and we were both a little skeptical. Like, could it actually play that well? How are you feeling? Because I don't know if you watched any of the 11 minutes.
I did. I watched the full thing. It's weird. I feel like I'm simultaneously like definitely in, but I can't say that I'm like super excited about it. I don't know whether that's an overexposure thing. I don't know if that's just because I still remain in some part of my brain skeptical that it's going to come together cohesively. Even though most of the stuff that we've seen and most of the stuff that we've heard from hands-on previews is saying like, yeah, no, it's pretty good. Yeah, so I don't really know where I sit. I will be playing it when it comes out. I'm not convinced that I won't be covering it in some capacity. That isn't an inside thing, you know, I don't know. But it's one of those, you know, like I end up doing a lot of these kind of Souls-likey,
Not a
offshooty.
Souls-like
I
developer.
know. I'm just saying perception-wise,
Yes,
lots of katanas and parrying and dodging, and like I'm usually in that bag with IGN, so I don't know if they're gonna spearhead me for it. But yeah, I will be playing. I just can't say that it's something I'm sort of chomping at the bit for it to come out.
Yeah, I would say I'm more excited for this than like Beast of Reincarnation, like my hype level for that was, but it's less than say like a Ninja Gaiden 4 was for me. It's somewhere in between there where I really like these games. I don't know if this is like I doubt I'm going to be playing this when it comes out. Not only because I have a budget, I'll probably wait for a sale, but there's so many other games that I've already like committed my time to that this one's probably going to end up on the back burner. But I am excited for it.
Yeah. Yeah, time will tell. I don't know. I mean, like, there's a sentiment that's growing on social media. I've seen it a few times from various people saying some version of like Sony is out of touch with its audience, or Sony is just doing whatever it wants. Sony's kind of running around like a headless chicken. I think that it's undeniable that Sony is in a bit of a maelstrom of not indecision about its strategy, but it seems inconsistent and lacks a sense of intentionality to it. There's no real sort of rhyme or reason. There's no cadence to it. Outside of like the PlayStation Plus announcements every month, there's like you could just place a bet on a random day and maybe they'll just announce, hey, this is the release date for Lao Fei, and it's like what? So I don't know if that is just the norm going forwards for them. I don't know. Again, I don't know whether it's an effective strategy for them. I mean, it has to be to some degree because they don't seem to be deviating from it. But it is, by proxy, quite frustrating in some ways as a fan of the ecosystem to not really have. We're kind of just floating in the void, right? And it's like, oh, maybe something taps us as we're drifting past. I don't know. But it feels like we could end up theoretically going months hearing nothing from PlayStation, and that is a spooky prospect if they feel that they can do that kind of thing.
That's why competition's important. I know we've stressed that before, but we need to find a middle ground. Like Xbox probably talks too much. PlayStation is not really. They're talking less and less, and when they do talk, they aren't talking about things that consumers want them to talk about usually. And then Nintendo doesn't talk at all. So I don't know.
It's like Goldilocks.
Yeah.
There's just nobody's got the right combination yet.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. I wouldn't say the announcements are bad. It's just they're random.
Yeah.
All right. So why don't we talk? I'm going to move to my topics. Not nearly as fun to talk about, but so Until Dawn developer SuperMassive Games, also known for the Dark Pictures anthology, The Quarry, casting of Frank Stones, yada. They have announced their third round of layoffs in 2 years. They're announcing that up to 75 staff members will be impacted, which last I knew they were at 350 2 years ago, and then they laid off, I want to say 150 of those. So they have significantly downsized in those 2 years. In their statement, they said, quote, "This is a difficult decision. They're beginning a redundancy consultation process as, quote, necessary step to help ensure the sustainability of the company. We know this will be an incredibly difficult time for everyone, and our priority throughout the process will be to provide support for all those impacted." Obviously, their last game, Directive 8020, which was part of the Dark Pictures, we both played it. I think, both accurately came to the same conclusion that it's a mixed bag. I think reviewers felt the same. I know the CEO left fairly recently, a few weeks ago, which I kind of predicted. Okay, I think layoffs are probably coming if the CEO is stepping down. I don't think the game sold very well, unfortunately, but this is just another instance of game devs struggling out there. Like, games are coming out and we're not seeing the sales. I wouldn't say this is a bad game, but it really is showing like you need to have kind of a hit on your hands, otherwise you're going to be in a difficult financial position.
Yeah, I mean, I don't quote me, but I am pretty confident that I read somewhere from some journalist, whether it was Ethan Gatch, it might have been, who said that, like, an inside source, or from what they're hearing, something in that vein, that the situation is more dire than Supermassive are suggesting it is.
Great.
Which kind of feels like a foregone conclusion if, like you say, this is the third round of layoffs over the past couple of years, and it's pretty sizable chunks being cleft out. Obviously unfortunate and incredibly disappointing. I think the issue that I find with this, and it's not a dig against Supermassive at all, is that the thing that made them famous, popular, successful, whatever, in the first place is kind of a bit of a 50-ton weight that's now wrapped around their neck, because I don't know that they necessarily have the bandwidth, certainly not at this point, to deviate enough from the formula that they've established to really give them a super strong chance of turning things around. Like, I think that they have their niche of, you know, the sort of narrative-based horror games, and like, that's cool. There's definitely an audience for them, but I think that they're seeing obviously diminishing returns in that aspect, and to a degree their execution is inconsistent. And I think that with all of this downsizing, obviously that's going to limit their bandwidth and probably by proxy their scope for whatever the next project might be. And I don't think that another narrative-based horror game, at least right now, is the thing that is going to steer them out of the skid.
So it's interesting you say that, because before they put out Directive 8020, they put out Little Nightmares 3.
Sure.
Taking over from Tarsier, I think is the studio that did Little Nightmares 1 and 2, and they did Reanimal. And both Little Nightmares 3 and Reanimal, to some extent, both kind of didn't see the success that Little Nightmares 1 and 2 did for that audience. Okay, I froze for a second there. Sorry. So I think it's interesting, because I thought that would kind of be the game where they saw the financial success. We're gonna do this one for Bandai Namco. This will be one for them, and then that'll help us with our Dark Pictures get. Like, that'll give us a financial success foundation to continue doing what we want to do. So that clearly didn't happen. I think both Little Nightmares 3 failing to hit, and now Directive 8020 I don't even know the sales number. I don't think they've even announced. Like, I doubt it sold 1 million units across all platforms, right?
Yeah.
Like, they probably would have announced that, which is a shame. But they've never really captured that lightning in a bottle that was Until Dawn, which sucks to see, because I do think I've played all of their games. They're varying in quality. I fail to say any of them are bad, but they really did benefit from the backing of PlayStation, whether it's the actors, and they've had some notable actors in there, but you clearly had better mocap, better financial resources at your disposal. I don't know what happened with PlayStation. I've heard that Supermassive and PlayStation kind of had a falling out, and that's what led to them. They've retained the IP. They're not doing Until Dawn 2, obviously. Fire Sprite is doing that, but they're supposed to be working on 3 more Dark Picture games. Like, they've already have the code names out there for 3 more in season 2. I wonder if they have to now pivot and say, we have to go support another developer to try to get financial resources, because what happens if they put out Intercession or whatever it's called, the next Dark Pictures game, and it fails? It doesn't hit the Until Dawn numbers. It is another Directive 8020, which I like those games. I'm going to be there day one to play it, but
Sure.
the main audience isn't drawn to your games. You have this reputation that your games are 6 and 7s out of 10, and players aren't showing up. So I don't know how they get out of this either, which is sucks to say. Like, but I do think you're kind of hitting a nail on the head here, where they're in a really bad situation. And I will say, the fact that they were 350 employees is absolutely insane to me for the titles they make, these narrative walking simulator toy space. I don't know what you're doing over there. Maybe they scaled up because they were working on Little Nightmares 3 at the same time, but that seems to be a bloated studio. I think. I'm not saying people should deserve to lose their jobs, but if you had asked me, I would have said Supermassive was a 100-person studio, right?
Yeah, and I think they're probably pretty close to that now, right? I would wager.
Yes, they're going to be around, maybe a little more, but yes, around.
Yeah, just over or something. Yeah, I mean, obviously, still wish them the best. I am obviously not as big of a fan of theirs as you are. I know that, but we never wish misfortune on any dev. I hope that whatever they're working on next does become that sort of, flash in a pan for whatever reason, whether it's the collective cast that they assemble, or whether it's the environment, or whether they find a novel gameplay mechanic or whatever. I hope that they can market it well, and therefore it succeeds to a greater extent, not necessarily explodes, but puts them on an upward trajectory, even if it is short term, because I think that then buys them runway to try and resolve the mid to long term issues that seem to be facing the studio. So fingers crossed.
Well, let's talk about some more layoffs. I have two more stories, everyone. Differing situations. This is studio closures. So Netflix has announced that they are closing two of their video game studios. The company is shutting down Los Angeles-based Night School Studio, the developer behind the acclaimed Oxenfree games, and plans to close Helsinki-based Moonloot. Netflix acquired Night School Studio in 2021, while Moonloot was founded in 2022. This comes from GameFile, who is reporting on the closure. That's Steven Totillo over there. So I'm unfamiliar with Moonloot. I do know Night School for the Oxenfree games, and then they just put out a game called Unhinged, right? And I think they also did a game called After Party, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
These are more games you're a fan of, but I will say, I'll throw it over to you to get your reaction. I'm not overly surprised. And I say this as this sucks, awful to see, especially because they were kind of renowned indie games. They were a developer held in high regard. But I do think the writing was on the wall back in 2021 when you signed the deal to become a Netflix studio. I do not understand in what world the CEO, the board, whatever, thought that being acquired by Netflix was going to help you succeed in the gaming realm. That makes absolutely no sense. I think they made an awful, maybe not financial decision, but a fiduciary decision to join this. Made no sense from the get-go. So I'm ultimately not surprised this is the outcome. I imagine we see most of Netflix's studios closed if they have any more, because who plays games on Netflix?
Yeah. I mean, no offense to the other studio, obviously, but Night School is the one that really sort of pissed me off. And I'm with you like 100%. I remember very, very vividly back in 21 when the announcement was made that they were being acquired. It was like a write-off to me in my head at that point. I was like, oh, well, it was cool. I really like that studio, but because they framed it at the time of, oh, we want to create novel and super unique experiences for the Netflix audience and all of those kind of things. It's like, right. So I'm never playing a game from you ever again, basically, is what you're telling me. And then I didn't, I didn't try out. I saw stuff about Unhinged, this new one. It had a pretty good voice cast from what I remember. But yeah, I wasn't interested. But that initial sort of, not fear, but write-off sentiment in my head had dissipated over the years, because it's been multiple years since they were acquired. And even though they have sort of dropped off the face of the map, I was like, oh, well, they just continue to exist, and they're small fry and they chip away in the background. They're a very small team. Fine. Not the ideal situation for the studio. I prefer for them to be almost anywhere else. But yeah, to get this news really sucks. I really liked After Party. I think Oxenfree, both 1 and 2, are like genuinely fantastic games for people who like, that space, that kind of genre. And I would encourage, I don't know what the rights situation are with those IP, but if you haven't played them and you look them up and you seem interested, I would, like, now is the time, assuming that they have any kind of connection to it.
Can you buy them? Like, is Oxenfree 2, because I know Oxenfree 1, they were independent, but like, is Oxenfree 2 on every platform, or is that one of those Netflix exclusive games?
That's a really good question.
Because I wonder, not to say that this is why they're closing, but the fact that maybe you can't buy their games, I can't imagine.
No,
you can.
Oxenfree 2 is on everything but Xbox.
Oh, interesting. Okay, all right.
Which I do recall back in the day when the game came out in 23. I do remember there being a hullabaloo because the first one is on Xbox, was on Xbox One, and then this one wasn't coming, and it was a whole like this was in the fray of like Sony money hatting. Sony didn't money hat this one, to be clear, but everyone was like, "Oh, another game skipping Xbox. Why is this indie game skipping Xbox?"
Probably
All that
because
stuff.
it's a competing subscription service.
I mean, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I had no idea if their games were available elsewhere because I didn't
It
know.
was published by Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was like an assumption when they were bought, the game might not come to other things, but they kept the commitments or whatever. So
Great. All right.
yeah, really bummed. I hope that, as with any layoffs, that these devs that are very talented find work elsewhere if they're interested. I would be super interested to see if that team managed to reform and create a new studio or something, because I think that there would be an audience for Oxenfree type experiences if they were interested in going back to that stuff. But given where the industry is at, I don't hold much hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sucks to see. I know Carrie Patel from Obsidian. She directed Avowed. She went over there, so she's getting laid off, unfortunately.
Rough.
Yeah. Let's talk about another negative story.
Yay!
Sam, have you been keeping up with this Saber Interactive drama?
Unfortunately, yes.
This is wild. So for anyone that doesn't know, Saber Interactive announced a game called Rideshare Stimulator a few weeks ago. This is they released a teaser trailer. It's like a gig economy driving simulator game, right? Kind of like you're going to be an Uber driver or something, right? One of the lead writers, her name was Stella Sacco. She was a lead writer at Saber Interactive, and she apparently worked on Stuntman Hollywood and this game until 2024. Said that Saber replaced her with generative AI tools that are not being disclosed, and said that, where's the quote here? They replaced her. Oh, my boss. Wait, where is it? Sorry, it's a bunch of things here. They replaced her as the lead writer with ChatGPT. Is her big claim essentially, and everyone was like, "How could they do that? That's horrible. You know, AI's taking jobs." That's not really the story I want to talk about. I think that sucks. Everyone losing your job, especially to crappy AI. But the CEO thought it would be a good idea to come out and publicly criticize her, and said, "Stella, who? I had to ask Claude because I've never spoken to her or seen her. We have already said we're using AI for certain parts of the game and will update the Steam page once we finalize the feature set." He said, "Then let me clarify that the entire story script, were it to win an award, would go to someone who can walk on stage and receive it. It was always our intention to reveal this until Stella violated her confidentiality clause and revealed this before we were ready. We look at our use of AI in this particular game, which will be a lower price title, as a plus for consumers. As far as Stella is concerned, she was replaced by someone more talented and terminated for a variety of reasons a few months later. From what I can gather, she enjoys controversy even more than I do. I would frankly, in retrospect, have been happy to replace her with AI. At least we would be dealing with someone programmed to be honest." Bro, you don't gotta say anything. Not saying anything would be way better than this, because this paints you in such a douchebag light. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I like a lot of Saber Interactive games. It sucks to hear that they're very much using AI for some things, and I'm gonna have to look at Steam disclosures now and be a little more concerned. I know Space Marine is under Saber, which I really like that series, but the fact that an employee came out from years ago, right, and said, you know, "Hey, I was replaced in this game by AI," kind of expressing her concern, a concern that many people in the industry have, many gamers have. They're not looking for this type of usage in their gaming. And your response was to pretend, one, you didn't know her, and then insult her in the same statement and say that she's lying, that she's incompetent, that AI could have done a better job than her. Like, just don't say anything. You just paint yourself as a douchebag, and I think you're ultimately going to end up hurting this game more than anything.
Yeah, I don't get it. It almost like, okay, if she did break like a confidentiality clause, I will say, stupid move.
Take her to
Don't do
court.
that. Exactly. And you can go fully public after the game comes out. You know, I know that that's not me advocating for people being silenced and stuff. I'm just saying, like, if you had signed something about being quiet and you knowingly break it, then you're opening yourself up to being discredited or sued or, you know, whatever. So you could probably have been a bit more tactical about how you decided to approach this. That being said, it's like one of the, outside of like the unity thing, this is one of the biggest self-immolation things I've ever seen from a company. Now, I don't know how much of a blowback this is going to have on Saber, but like you said, of like looking at AI disclosures, I don't know that, particularly just because of how many games Saber is involved with nowadays. I don't know that I'm necessarily going to be like not touching any Saber game going forwards, but I am. It's like you've introduced the question, right? And like any prior to this happening, I was fully on board. I was like, Saber's a dope publisher.
My feelings as well. I was like, they're doing it all right.
They're just doing tons of different stuff. They're doing loads of licensed games really well.
That KOTOR remake gonna hit good.
Yeah. You know, they got John Wick in the future. It's like,
oh yeah, they do have John Wick. Yeah.
I was like, I think aren't they doing that? Yeah, they're doing Stuntman as well, right?
Yeah,
the Stuntman, yeah.
Yeah.
So a load of cool projects in the pipeline. And here we are. You know, it's like you tripped over a hurdle that you yourself put in front of yourself. And yeah, I don't really get the point of it. It almost feels like, and you know, I'm not trying to throw this out into the ether, but it almost feels like he's got a personal grievance with her that pre-existed this thing, whatever that is. But it seems strangely personal and sort of spiteful and disrespectful.
You know what the statement reminds me of? Something Randy Pitchford would say. Like when he was on social media, just telling everyone they were wrong about the performance issues for Borderlands 4. It's like, nah, your PC sucks. Get him. I can't fix garbage hardware. Like, bro, come on. Like,
yeah, and what was it that I can't remember what the article was, but it was being critical about something behind the scenes with Borderlands 4 before it came out, and he was like, Game Informer, why would you fuck me like this? You know, it's like it's that sort of thing that's like, Randy, you really just don't need to speak sometimes. I can't believe you haven't figured out how to implement a filter.
I'm surprised PR let this statement go out.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like it's so ludicrous a statement that you almost have to wonder whether it's somehow like bypassed PR. Because unless, and I'm not trying to frame it this way, unless something that we don't know actually surmises that this woman, this writer, is like an awful person that did terrible things whilst working at the company, unless that specifically is the case, which I highly doubt, I can't find any good reason to go this scorched earth when all it will do is optically turn people against you because you aren't presenting evidence. You're just being vague and, spiteful and vindictive for no good reason. You know, what she said in her post wasn't like a personal attack against him. You know, obviously she labeled heavy criticism against the company in general, against Saber, but to take that as some like personal slight and then start discrediting her as a professional, like, again, that rubs me the wrong way. That it feels very weird to have that kind of dynamic be not permissible, but even possible is very dystopian, and I don't like that.
Yeah, it's a shame to see from a company that I held in high regard. I'm gonna put that aside. I'm gonna ignore the douchebag CEO, all right, because they don't speak for the hard workers and people making the games. So we'll judge the games as they come out and not by this. But I thought it was a very strange situation.
Yeah.
All right, Sam, let's get into our Patreon topic. If you want to submit a topic for the show, head over to patreon.com/SaveTheGameMedia. $1 a month. You can write in each and every week. If your topic is not selected, it is saved for our Patreon exclusive episode that Sam and I do each and every month. So Black Wyver has a write in this week. He says, "Good day, gents. Hope y'all are having a fantastic week. I would like to get your thoughts on the possible upcoming handhelds. 1. Switch 2. Is it time for an OLED version? March 2027? Question mark. Number 2, Xbox." And he capitalized Xbox. "Do we still think they will release their own handheld, not an Asus version, or has Project Helix derailed those plans? 3. Lastly, what are your thoughts on the PlayStation handheld dropping before PlayStation 6? Is the handheld January 2028 and PlayStation 6 in November 2028? Take care." So really 3 questions in one, all handheld related from the big 3 companies here. Why don't we tackle these in order? So Switch 2, you think it's time for an OLED version, Sam?
I mean, I'm not going to profess to be super knowledgeable on how well the Switch OLED did, but I would wager that it was quite successful as a revision. So I, particularly with the uptick, the sizable uptick in big third-party support that the Switch 2 is receiving, I feel if it's within their remit, it would only behoove Nintendo to replicate that and release an OLED model. Whether it's as imminent as, first half of next year or not, I don't know, with how sort of elongated these console life cycles are already and will probably extend even further going into the future. But it will, I have no doubt that at some point there will be an OLED version of the Switch 2.
It's funny because I'm actually a little less confident there will be an OLED version. And I say that because of the price difference. I think the OLED version was $50 or $100 more, and the Switch 2 already getting a price increase in literally 20 or something, like a few weeks here in the United States. I think it's around the world, but it's going up $50. So now the base price is going to be $500 as opposed to the $450 that it was here in the States. If you put out an OLED revision in the current economic climate with the RAM shortage and component issues that are going on, are you really going to sell a Switch 2 OLED for $550, $600? Like, Nintendo really, I don't think Nintendo wants to be at 500. I think they would much prefer to be that 400, 450 maximum price point, but their price is kind of out of their control, right? Just due to everything going on in the world. I think they would struggle to say, hey, come buy our new $600 handheld that isn't as powerful as a PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. It's a little cheaper, but it's still $100 more than those consoles were at launch. But you have a screen that colors look better on. So I'm a little less confident that we see a Switch OLED.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a perfectly valid, well put argument. I think the only maybe counterpoint that doesn't hold massive amounts of weight, but could factor into a conversation about whether they do or don't, is the sticker shock would certainly be the key issue regardless. But there is maybe a sentiment of, if the price increases for the base version happen anyway, if there is not saying this is good for the consumer either, to be clear, if this sets a baseline for what might be acceptable for Nintendo-centric consumers to buy as the base console, if they offer a revised version that has OLED, probably a few and additional little tweaks and whatever to sweeten the deal. If they offer that at a higher price, that would again be a bigger sticker shock, but would incentivize whales and hardcore to upgrade who've been there since day one with the base Switch. That could work in the same way of like the PS5 Pro. Obviously, that's even more expensive. But in that market, appealing to the specialist, almost to order kind of market where they don't produce them in massively high quantities. And I think by proxy, again, not great for the consumer, but from a marketing perspective, if you're trying to sort of psychologically influence consumers, which all advertising is, there is something, I think, about having a higher cost version of a thing and then having a still high cost but lower cost version of that thing.
You're trying to. I'll get the cheaper one.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. If you see that there is a higher cost version and you'll go, wow, that's completely my problem. Oh, but there is this version, even if it hasn't lowered in price from what it already was, the base Switch 2. I think you're psychologically probably going to influence a few people that you wouldn't otherwise.
So if that's the case, I know what they need to do. The OLED model should be a Switch 2 Lite. Get rid of the dock.
Sure.
It's just the handheld. You could probably gets rid of some of the cost. You might be able to price it lower or comparable to the base Switch, but it has an OLED screen. It'll be just for those handheld players. They'll get the more vibrant colors that they're looking for. I think a Switch 2 Lite OLED would be the play if they wanted to do a screen revision.
Yeah. And I think the inverse of what I said also is true, of the people that were going to buy a Switch 2 anyway, then have an avenue to give Nintendo even more money, right? So they're like dead set. They're like, oh, well, I was going to pick up a Switch 2 anyway. Oh, there's this more expensive version, but I get a few more bells and whistles with it. I might as well just do that. It's risky, and I don't know how, again, in today's market, today's climate, today's economy, how well that would actually feasibly do. But I think that there are historical precedents that would suggest there is potential upside for them to do it.
Yeah, we'll see. I think there's an okay chance that one of those things happens.
I don't think, but to your point, I don't think it's as sort of set in stone as it might have been even last generation.
Oh, I'm sure they want to do it. I think it just needs to make financial sense.
Yep.
Xbox. Sorry, John32 in the chat says it's pronounced Xbox.
Xbox.
Kind of like Sega,
Yeah.
How they, does Xbox release a handheld that isn't associated with Asus, or has that been scrapped? Because I'm very much of the thought process that we will never see a standalone Xbox handheld. I think they realize that it's not worth the R&D for them to put out such a device, just because the consoles are struggling to sell. How are you going to get your base to then buy into a handheld that can only play your Xbox games? I think the OEM handhelds are a much better avenue for Xbox, especially with Helix going, if it continues down this PC route, right, where you can play PC. Like at that point, that's essentially what it would be anyway. So just let someone else manufacture it. You still get a cut if they're buying on your store, subscribing to Game Pass. Like you can have promotional marketing deals. I don't think it makes sense for Xbox to get into the handheld realm apart from those partnerships.
Yeah. I mean, again, sort of to what you just said about Nintendo, of like, in an ideal world, I think that sure, they would love to do it. But obviously, it is a far from our ideal world, at the very least on the hardware side for Xbox. And as I've said multiple times, I don't see that changing going into the future. So I think that you hit the nail on the head, really. I don't have much more to add there. I think OEMs, like, the ROG Ally did decently well.
Yeah, better than I expected it to do.
For sure, for what I was expecting it to do. But I think it probably exceeded their expectations to a degree, and that's good. But I think that there's no reason, particularly for Asher talking about resetting the business and running on better margins and all of these things. I don't think that they necessarily need the headache of internalizing the process of making these things. They already have established working relationships with these OEM partners. They're selling decently well, they're performing well, they're being received well. So I think you just continue that trend. So that's where I see it.
It's the same thought process behind why they scrapped the cloud streaming box that we saw on Phil Spencer's shelf, right? Where, well, why would we make this when these devices there's already Roku, there's already Fire Sticks, there's already apps on TV. Like, we don't need to sell a proprietary little box that you plug into a TV. Like, just have an app on the TV that's going to do the exact same thing. Have it on the Fire Stick. I view it very much the same way, where it's not worth it for them to do it themselves when this avenue already exists.
Yeah, that we can go to them. Speaking as Xbox, we can go to them as opposed to them coming to us.
Yep.
Because we have to make the thing first for them to want to come to us. Whereas we can just go to the thing that already exists and save time and money.
Yep. Absolutely. Last one, the PS6 handheld. I actually talked about this on my my Q&A. Everyone go listen to that if you're a patron over at patreon.com. $1 a month, like I said. Or you can get a free trial, 7 days. All right, everyone? But what do you think?
7 days.
What do you think about the PlayStation 6 handheld potentially dropping before the PS6? Do you think they need to drop at the same time? Do you think there's still going to be a PlayStation 6 handheld?
Yes, I do think there will be a handheld. What form it takes, I don't know. Obviously, there's conflicting reports of it just being a sort of standalone device. There's other reports saying that it's going to be like a dockable hybrid Switch-like thing. I've even heard, not that it's like a concrete thing or believable, but I've heard other people speculating, what if the handheld dockable hybrid is the PlayStation 6, which seems ludicrous.
Wild.
I mean, if they want to try it, then fine. I don't know how that's going to go for them, but yeah. So I think it's still coming. I personally quite like the idea of them releasing the handheld before the console. Not only because it would be a blessing to my wallet for not having to fork out for two ludicrously expensive things at once. But also I think that the sooner that they can get a more accessible, approachable, adaptable version of the ecosystem in your hands, the better, because then you will start making purchases on it. You'll start building up a library if you don't have one already. You'll be ingratiating yourself into the ecosystem more. And then by the time, if the handheld came out first, you've accrued a bit of a library, or you've become that much more ingrained if you already were, then that's going to not necessarily guarantee, but it will inevitably increase the potential likelihood of you then picking up the console itself, because you want that sort of universal experience. You've got the thing already that you can take on the go, but if you want to play all these games that you just bought in their best form, you can pick up the console. So I think that that's in their best interest. I don't think there's any world where they do that, though. Unfortunately, as much as it would be interesting, and they would frankly get 2 marketing beats out of that if they did it that way, which would help them, I think. But no, I think that it will just be a big blowout. They'll release at the same time, if not at specifically the same time, within very, very, very close proximity of one another. Pre-orders might go up for the handheld first or something, or vice versa. But yeah, I don't think that that's the better strategy, frankly. I think that releasing them separately is smarter, but I don't think that logistically it's going to be feasible for them to do so.
I think the release timing might depend on the price tag of those things.
Sure.
I really struggle to see a world where you're launching a PS6 handheld that's, I don't know, let's say $800, and you're launching a PS6 console that's $1,000, and you expect even your hardcore consumers to pick up both of them on the same day at launch. Like go to Best Buy, go to Target, go to GameStop, and walk out with both of those devices. Like that seems a little far-fetched to me. So I do like the idea of releasing them at different times. I'm very hung up on this January 2028 ending discs thing. And not for the reason people on the internet are hung up on where they're mad they're losing their discs. I really do feel that confirms the PlayStation 6 is not next year. I don't think we get it holiday. It wouldn't make sense to have a small period where PlayStation 6 is getting discs. If you're setting that cutoff, you clearly know PlayStation 6 is either that spring, that holiday season 2028, because you've then acclimated your customers to not expect discs anymore. The handheld is certainly all digital. I imagine the console will be all digital. So I do wonder if there is a world where, like Black Wyver right in, do we see the handheld come out in January, February, March, and then the console is the holiday thing? Do they release them both in the spring? Do they release them both in the holiday season? I think it's 2028 regardless. I think the timing could vary. It all depends on how they want to view it. Do they want to say, hey, the handheld is really get you ready for PlayStation 6. It's like a portable PlayStation 5. You can get all your PlayStation 5 games on the go, and then when the PS6 comes out, it's like, hey, if you want the best experience, we're offering PS6 upgrades for all our titles, and I'm sure they'll be paid like they were for the PS4, right? $10, but you have that digital library now built up because we've gotten rid of discs. Like you couldn't have been buying them the whole year, right? It's a very interesting proposition. I'm personally not interested in the PlayStation handheld if it does come to fruition. It's interesting because you brought up the form. Like if it's just a handheld, definitely out. If the PlayStation 6 somehow, some way is a Switch-like device where it's a dock, I mean, okay, I guess, but that doesn't really sell. Like I have a Switch, and if it was up to me, the Switch would not be undockable. I want a Switch where it's only a machine. Don't let me take it out. All right. I know I'm in the minority on that. So they're gonna do a lot of different. They'll probably just do the standard, release them both at the same time. But I think there is the possibility for interesting things to go on if they do have two devices to offer.
Yeah. And I think as well, like an interesting caveat is obviously all the conversation has been like calling it the PlayStation 6 handheld. But I don't see a world where this handheld thing is called a PlayStation 6 something. I think it's just going to be called PlayStation something, in the same way that the Portal isn't called PlayStation 5 Portal, right? Mm-hmm. So whilst they might be analogous to one another because they're releasing in the same period, I don't think that we necessarily, I could be wrong, need to think of it specifically as these two devices are intrinsically linked in terms of like their generational setting and that they are analogous to one another. I think that it might, I would frankly, I'd love for it to just go back to being a PlayStation Portable, like call it a PSP.
It might actually benefit them to if they're not going to have the PlayStation 6 marketing as a PlayStation 6 handheld, PlayStation 6 whatever, right? It might be beneficial for them to release it at a separate time, give it a different name, stress that unlike the Vita, unlike the PSP, this plays console games, but on the go. This is our version of a Steam Deck, right? Try to capture the Japanese market, maybe have a subsidized version of this over there, right? I think there's a marketing play there for an audience that maybe doesn't want another console. They want the handheld. I know Nissa if she's still in the chat, she loves handheld gaming. That's her primary way to play games. Like there are people out there that really just want to play handheld games, and I think that could be the play. I don't know what they call it. This might eat into the PlayStation Portal sales. I think the PlayStation Portal is really interesting. Like I was thinking about this the other day. I could sell my PS5, get a Portal, and still play 90% of the games I own because they seem to all come with the streaming feature as long as I have PS Plus, right? Like that is a viable thing people could do. Now I would never do that. I think I don't want a cloud game, but it is an interesting proposition for players out there.
Certainly. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they frame it. I think that's sort of what I was getting at of it not being called a PlayStation 6 something does. I think it makes the most sense for it to not be called a PlayStation 6 something. And if it isn't called a PlayStation 6 something, then I think that gives them the bandwidth to release it separately at a different time, which we're both in agreement would be probably the optimal strategy, not only for us as consumers in terms of money spending, but also them in being able to market two devices separately without stepping on the toes of one another and complicating what this one does and this one doesn't and all this stuff. So I expect we'll hear about it, not relatively soon, but
next
soon-ish.
Next year, I think. Because I was going to say this holiday, like this fall, we would hear if they like at least acknowledge that these things were real. But the fact that I think they're 2028 gives them a little more time. Like probably next year we'll start hearing about these things. I see John in the chat says PlayStation 6U. Nissa says
that went very well for the Wii.
Yeah. I just want a PlayStation PC app. I agree. They need to. I feel like they've given up, but the PS Plus app and the Remote Play app for PlayStation on PC, absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. They need a complete overhaul of those if they even care anymore, which I don't think they do. The Fandom Foundry shout. Todd says, I don't need device locked to a TV. Yeah, a lot of people feel the same way. Knowing them, they're going to call it the PlayStation 6 companion handheld, like some really corporatized thing, right?
If they do that, one, just horrendous name in general, incredibly uninspired. Second of all, I think that unironically they would be like zonqueing their chances of this thing doing well. Because again, I think like the more that they link it to PlayStation 6, even if the PlayStation 6 does decently well, which I think it still has a decent chance of doing ultimately, but certainly not compared to previous generations. Like, I think you're stumping this thing off at the knees if you're saying, even if it's not in actuality true, if even the mere implication of them having the same name means that some people don't buy it because they think that you have to have both, or that the handheld only works if you have a PlayStation 6, kiss of death.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting. I'm excited to see Xbox and PlayStation's next gen strategy, especially. Yeah. I mean, I'm not interested to buy them personally. I mean, I'm not interested
to experience it, but interested to learn about it.
Yes. I'm way more interested to learn about Project Helix because I have a PC. I'm way more interested to learn about PS6, even though I feel like I'm going to be riding my PS5. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they come out and the PS6 is like this gotta have it thing, right? But at the moment, my PS5 is doing just fine for me, and I don't see that changing, but... All right, Sam, I think that will do it for this episode. That we went a lot longer than I expected us to with a light news week, but it was a fun chat. Do you want to let everyone know where they can find you until next week?
Playing Redacted. That's where.
It should have been me.
But in the meantime, anywhere and everywhere at Sam Heaney, Heaney.
You can find me at the Muffin Mon everywhere. It's 17I, O and 7A. Follow us to Save the Game Media over on Blue Sky to stay updated with all our latest content. Until next time, we will see you. Goodbye.